What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Shatter the Script, episode 4. I'm your host, Jared Main. I'm joined by my other host,
Hunter Poole.
And we are here to shatter the script on a couple of things. But to first kind of outline the rest of the episode, we'll start off by saying we had some technical difficulties yesterday. We recorded an entire podcast that just blacked out on us at the end. Long story short, we're back at it Monday evening, Central Time. And we have a couple of topics for you guys lined up. So there's a big sports gambling epidemic in the sports betting world and the professional world, in the MLB, NFL, all that kind of stuff. ESPN moving to a betting company in August of 2023. UFC 300, one of the most successful UFC and most anticipated UFC events this past weekend. So that was a fun weekend event. The Masters concluded on Sunday. We'll be diving into the winner of that and some other things. Ceedee Lambs and Jeddah are holding out from voluntary workouts in anticipation of a contract. So we might kind of throw a little flash of NFL at you. The Silver Boot Series, Houston versus the Texas Rangers, and a fun little unscripted segment is what is the toughest sport to become the GOAT in? And we'll have some tree branch questions from that. That question originated from Hunter. He's taking the lead on the unscripted series, flexing for the camera there. But without further ado, we check in on our host, Hunter Poole, live from the studio. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Just did a bunch of Andy Elliott training today.
Yeah.
Sales training, 0 to 100K. If you haven't, it's a good course. I'm blessed to have it for free. It's a good course if you're into sales. You need a little bit of motivation, discipline. Go check out his sales program. I'm not affiliated with him. I'm not trying to sell his program. I just want to say, for me, it's a good program.
Dude, it's good. So when I first heard about Andy Elliott, we've seen all the other guys too. Like I was like, oh, he's too much. Like it's too hard for me. Like as in like intense. I was like, this super ripped guy telling me how to live. Then I started listening to his stuff, and I was like, okay, this is really good stuff. Especially being in sales, we're both in sales. I was like, this is some legendary motivation and disciplinary stuff. So I concur. I think he's great. And yeah, hey, we have him as a guest. We'd learn a lot of things. So
you tell him he'd be like, take off your shirt.
I don't want to.
Get it. All
right, fine. Take off your pants. All right, we'll stop there. We'll be right back.
Stop.
Yeah. We'll keep it right here.
Let's get into it, though.
Let's get into it. All right. So to start off, this is our Shatter the Script segment. We're going to be talking about the sports gambling epidemic. So this kind of goes hand in hand with a bunch of different things. ESPN became a betting company in 2023 of August, and that kind of changed the parameters of how things were going to be. And we talked about a lot of, Shohei Ohtani, Calvin Ridley, all these players who are getting caught for gambling as professional athletes when it's slammed in their face practically, like, hey, by the way, Caesar Sportsbook and DraftKings and FanDuel, and oh, by the way, your fantasy football apps you can bet too. Oh, and the tournament, March Madness tournament, you can bet on the UFC. Just betting is thrown everywhere in your face all the time, and it kind of poses the question: what did these mainstream media outlets expect when you become a betting company and you have professional athletes, or even I get it. It's like it's Ohtani's interpreter that kind of was going through all of that, but with all of this, how do you feel like with ESPN, like becoming a betting company and all these sports, like for the professional athlete standpoint, it getting thrown in your face?
Yeah, so to kind of comment on that, I've always said, I'm not going to stand on here on my high horse and be like, how could they bet? They're getting paid millions of dollars, they should be thankful and all that. Look, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if I was if I was in sports, I would still be betting. Betting is fun. It has a nice adrenaline to it. You don't experience it unless you do it. These guys, as long as they're not betting on themselves, their teams, or they get any inside scoop of what's going on, if they want to bet on just a random game, NBA or something like that, I don't see any issue with it. However, though, if they're only betting because they know some certain type of information within their own team, or with what's going on, maybe they have a bud in this locker room, there should be consequences for that. But as far as just betting and doing what you want to do, I don't see no issue with it. If they want to bet and they don't know, they just know as much as we do. Maybe they just went and saw, some props on Twitter or something. How are they as a human just being like, well, I mean, that guy, he did his research, it makes a lot of sense. Like, fuck it, let me place a bet,
My suggestion would be like, since ESPN and CBS and all these, but like you look on Thursday Night Football, like they come out and they go, what is your, Brian Fitzpatrick, what's your, player prop of the night? Well, I'm going, over 3.5 receptions for Stephon Diggs tonight. And then Richard Sherman, what's yours? And all these athletes and or former athletes that are like anchors on these shows are literally picking player props before the game even happens. CBS is doing it. NBC and all this. Like, my suggestion would be there needs to be a regulation committee that gets formed that says that basically puts rules and regulations in place of how professional athletes can bet. Because if you're going to have every mainstream outlet that broadcasts these games live on television throwing out player prop bets and stuff like that before the game, there needs to be some kind of I get it. Like, you shouldn't be able to bet on your own team, but what if you could bet outside of the sport? Like, if you're an NFL player, you can't bet on anything NFL, but you can bet NBA.
Well, you can. It's very contradicting too for these analysts or people who are above the media to like give out props, because if they're like, you see someone like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Richard Sherman, they're like, this player tonight, everyone is going to bet on that prop,
right?
Just because they said it.
Yeah.
Who's not saying that? They're told like, hey, tell people to bet on this, make the money high, and then those persons don't perform.
Yeah.
It's all a money thing. These people have a bunch of influence on the normal person. Maybe a lot of it too is going to be like people who don't bet. So you see, like, when you see Stephen A. Smith do his props, Stephen A. Smith takes the first 4 DTCs. He'll do like only the main guys. Like, say for NBA, he'll do like LeBron, Shea, KD. He'll do these guys and be like over. Like, he doesn't. It doesn't seem like he has any thought process behind it. But people listen to Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
A lot of people do actually care about what he says. So they're like, you know what? If Stephen A. Smith's doing it, and this guy's supposed to know more than most people, he has a bunch of inside information. Why don't I go with that?
Right.
Same thing with that. These people have influences, and who's not telling them, as ESPN or that, who's not telling them to say that?
Right. Yeah. And my Shatter the Script part would be, there are people that are telling him he's got so much stuff going on, so many different shows that he's a part of, so many different things to cover and notes to gather. There's got to be someone that's telling him, hey, by the way, this is a prop. This is your outline of props for the week. Like, I wouldn't doubt that that's in existence for guys like Stephen A. Smith, Will Kane, like all those types of guys, Pat McAfee, especially Pat McAfee. But if you look at like the XFL, when you tune into one of their games, it literally shows the over under or spread for the game in the icon for the score. It's like the Stallions, -3.5 or whatever, like mid game. Like, the XFL is encouraging you to bet on it. And the thing about betting and why ESPN made the change to become a betting company is how increasingly popular betting has become over the past 2-3 years. I think I saw that it gained over $7.5 billion in annual revenue, which was a massive increase from the year prior. So that was 2023. So 2022, a huge increase.
I bet.
Exactly. And so it makes sense why they became a betting company, but is it a good move? In my opinion, no, it's not, because you're encouraging, like, now you got this. It's not encouraging just athletes to bet. Well, look at the Ohtani situation. You got the interpreter betting hundreds of thousands, close to millions of dollars, and paying off his gambling losses with the Ohtani contract, basically, which is nuts. And then what's that put Ohtani as? The victim. He's the biggest superstar in baseball. He's the guy that does the most in Major League Baseball today, pitching and hitting. Super stud just signed a massive contract with the Dodgers. Like, this can't happen. But it goes back. It goes back to the tweet that we had that was in our in my bookmarks here. It was like, Welcome back to Sports Center, presented by ESPN Bet. For more on the Ohtani situation, we go to our FanDuel MLB insider, Jeff Passan, at our DraftKings studio in Los Angeles, brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. Jeff, how could something like this happen? And that's a perfect representation of how the sports betting world and the mainstream media's collaboration with it has just kind of become a cluster. Like, I don't agree with it. And, it puts an impact on organizations like the Dodgers and the MLB itself. MLB itself is already under massive fire. Like, the commissioner has kind of screwed up a lot of different things, which kind of leads us into our next topic here in a minute. But, like, what do you think about like the advertisements and the subsidiary shows and stuff like that? Like the Pat McAfee show, Barstool Sports has a huge impact. They're huge on, they're hosting live shows on betting, which no problem with that. That's awesome. I think it's fun, but it's just everywhere for an athlete to see. It's just
true. And they say athletes, they need to not listen to the media.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they are humans. So it's like, let me just throw on the TV real quick. Like, what are they supposed to watch? Just like, Netflix shows all day or read a book if they want. Like, sometimes they're like, no, I just want to see what's going on in the sports world. They tune into ESPN, they turn into a show like that, and it's like, oh, sports bet. And that's just kind of, at the end of the day, there's no really, they're never going to be allowed to gamble.
Yeah.
But it's but you got to think about it, like they're always going to have the opportunity to, and there's no way they're going to get out of it. Sports gambling's not going anywhere, and these players are going to keep getting caught. There's going to be consequences. At the end of the day, it's just, rules are rules.
Yeah.
And it's you really can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Ohtani, Calvin Ridley, a couple Indianapolis Colts players from the previous year. I expect there to be more that are caught.
Pete Rose.
Yeah, Pete Rose. I expect there to be more caught within the next 3 years from years not even current. Like, I think they're making an investigation on what's happening right now, and then 2 years on the line, it's like, yeah, he was caught from gambling from the previous year. So I don't expect there to be much improvement there. But yeah, we'll transition. So I wanted to talk about what's up with the MLB right now. Like, we kind of transitioned. Yeah, look at the Ohtani problem. We covered that, but it just seems like there's a bunch of pitchers right now that are just blowing up their arms. A lot of UCL issues from the last 2 years. You've got big names like Shane Bieber and Spencer Strider, Jacob deGrom from the previous year. Scherzer hurt his arm. Verlander's in treatment. He's with the Corpus Christi Hooks right now, pitching. It's just like, do you think that the pitch clock has something to do with these UCL injuries, or do you think it's something deeper?
So probably the pitch clock would probably be the best bet, just because with the pitch clock, it's going to be, these pitchers are having to, throw a lot faster. The baseball is going a lot faster. The games used to be about 3.5 hours. I think they're closer to about 3 now. They're picking it up unless the team is just smoking the ball the whole time. So with that being said, there's going to be some sacrifices. Do you want a faster game for the fans, but then there's going to be star pitchers who can't pitch as much? Or do you want to go back to the regular kind of slow game, but then you're getting the full potential of these star pitchers? Yeah. That's really the most person that affects the most is the pitcher and maybe the hitter at the time. So with that, the pitch clocks can really affect the arms of these players moving forward, elbows. There's not that many Tommy John surgeries like we used to see.
Yeah.
But now I think with the pitch clock, we're about to see a lot more of those happening.
Yeah, and it seems like, a big name that struggled with a lot of arm injuries back in the day that we wish we could have seen more was like Steven Strasburg. Like, that was before the pitch clock even came in implementation. I remember I threw out a video when it was one of the episodes I hosted by myself, and I had this video right when the pitch clock came out, and I said that it was bad for pitchers because you're throwing at a fast-paced environment. There's not a lot of time for relief of the arm. The medical guy mentioned to me that throwing a baseball, the motion of it itself isn't the healthiest movement. So you're already at a disadvantage there. And now you got just fast pace. Like, yeah, it's cool for the sport to speed up baseball. A lot of fans that aren't diehard baseball fans looked at it and said, oh, this is cool. Like, it's fast paced. This is it's like a shot clock. And whereas I looked at it and said, and I kind of stood on it for a while, and it looked cool for the first year. But then I saw the repercussions of it. You kind of like you got to give it a little bit of time in terms of how is it going to affect the pitchers. And then we saw how it affected the batters. It didn't seem like it was that bad, but like a couple of stats here with the arms. So since last season, 34.2% of pitchers to appear in an MLB game had Tommy John surgery at some point in their past. And that's according to researcher John Rogel. And it said that number was 34% in 2022, 30% in 2021, and 29% in 2019, the last full season before the pandemic. So the number keeps going up because pitcher injuries keep going up. So on record, it's an epidemic. It happens to be a big problem for the MLB. And these pitchers need to be able to stay healthy and throw. Tyler Glasnow, I saw an article that he's been dealing with like elbow issues since 2019. So like my thought on it is like, yeah, the pitch clock is a fun way to ramp up the game of baseball for all those average Joes out there that say, I don't like to watch a baseball game on TV. There's too many games and the game goes by so slow. Well, then I've been to a couple like games in person with the pitch clock implemented, and I'm like shocked at how fast the game is going. I'm like, what? And it's like the game's over. It's the 8th inning. What do you mean? Like I just got here, and that's not good for your beer purchases either. At the stadium, it's like $13, $15. So you're gonna have to like chug and quit and leave your seat and get back to it. But yeah, another article, Tony Clark said the league's unwillingness thus far to acknowledge or study the effects of these profound changes is an unprecedented threat to our game and its most valuable asset, the players. So there's complaints everywhere. And, we'll leave it up to the audience to interpret how you like the pitch clock and if you think it's affecting MLB pitchers. I mean, look at the Astros right now. I mean, they have a lot of starting pitchers that are out from injuries. McCullers has been injured multiple times.
Like 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. DeGrom can't stay healthy. You mentioned moving him to a relief pitcher because he can't stay healthy as a starter. Like that's a problem. One of your best arms in MLB, the dude has like a sub-2 ERA. So it's just I don't agree with it. I still think there's some adjustments need to be made.
There's always room for improvement, and as long as as a commissioner, you got to see these things, and it's one of those things where. Yeah, it kind of sucks to see it happen, but you wouldn't know what's going to happen until you try it. So it's one of those things where they had to try it out. They have to try to do things, and next time they go to the drawing board, they're like, okay, the pitch clock was not it. Let's try something different, but we do need to keep the speed of the game going, and the pitch clock was not it.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of adjustments Rob Manfred makes within the coming years. But I doubt it's the right ones. He's made a lot of mistakes, and he's not a fan favorite. But yeah, let's move into some the weekend entertainment. We got UFC 300 in the Masters tournament. How did you like UFC 300? I thought it was a fantastic event.
It was one of the best UFCs I've seen in a very long time. I think we won't see a UFC like that until June 29th, where Conor McGregor makes his return.
Yeah,
that's going to be a super one that people want to watch just because he hasn't fought in 3 years. UFC 300, they had to where the 12 guys who were in the main card, 11 of them at one point they held a belt.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, everyone knows these guys, and Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje took the show by storm. They had the best fight of the night. It was the most exciting. Last 10 seconds, you guys saw what happened. He said, meet me in the middle. Let's throw some hands right now. And I saw a clip that's what he's been known for. He'll tell guys, there's one from like 2017. He's like, no, come right here. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's throw some hands in the middle.
Yeah.
And, like you always say, Justin Gaethje, he can be stunned and he still hits you with something because he has like that country boy strength. He's never out of a fight. Max Holloway drops him like a bag of rocks, folds him up like a chief suit right in the middle. He said, I have nothing to win right here. I have everything to lose. I still want to meet you in the middle like a man and throw some hands. I got the biggest balls on the planet right now. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, dude. So when we were watching that all together or whatever, and it's a 5-round fight. Well, the first 4 went to Max Holloway, I would argue, and I'm pretty sure they did. I just don't have the stats in front of me. But every time I watch Max Holloway, he is the last time I watched him, it was his most technically sound fight. I can't remember who he was fighting, but I was like, this dude is just piecing this guy apart. It's like a built puzzle, and he's just like a cat on top of the table, just removing pieces and screwing with you the whole time. You're like, I can't get rid of this damn cat. It doesn't listen to me. And he's just all over it, man. Like jabs, kicks, takedown defense, submissions. It don't matter. This dude fought like 15 or 16 different guys, all contenders, all, validated fighters in the UFC in different weight classes, and still has not gotten knocked down by like any of them. The dude is awesome. And I'm a big Justin Gaethje guy. Like, I took him over Max Holloway, in my personal preference. I was like, even in round 5, I was like, look, he got a broken nose. He can't breathe. He's up against the wall. He looks wobbly. He could still knock you out with a right hand hook. And he did a lot of damage to his front left leg because he's a powerful kicker. But, it's crazy because, like, in the UFC 300, the main card featured athletes, all of them who held all-time records for finishes, strikes landed, and bonuses. And, like, I remember seeing Dana White move the bonus from 50K to 300K just because somebody asked. Like, he was like, what's the number that y'all wanted at? And they're like, somebody, I think it was Gaethje. He goes 300K, and he's like, I heard 300K, done. And everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably the best commissioner all sports.
Yeah,
he listens to his fighters, and he lets them say whatever they want to say. He's a man of the people.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. He's like, did he say something wrong? What did he say? Well, he's black. He can say what he wants to say.
Yeah, he can say what he wants to. Who cares if he's black?
Yeah, who cares? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Next, no reporters like him.
No.
And he supports Trump. Like, people are not a fan of him.
No.
Personally, but if you want to look at commissioners by the sport, he's probably the best commissioner in all of sports right now.
He did a really good job of explaining why he was in support of Donald Trump when he endorsed him for his reelection. He was just like, look, he's the only guy that supported me. This was a built from the ground up UFC event. No one understood. The weight classes were crap. He showed up to all of our fights in support, endorsed it. And that's why we're here today. Without him, I would not have been here. That's a great testimony and why someone from a business aspect would support a guy like Trump. But like, did you ever see when Dana White kicked the dude out of the UFC? Like, so they pause the fight in between rounds, and this dude runs up around the ref and like just right hand jabs this dude straight to the jaw. And the referee takes the guy down, everything. And then in the post-game or the post-fight interview, I can't remember his name. Let's just say it was Johnny. It was like, it's like, so, with what Johnny did after that fight, what's the response? Oh, he's done. He's done. He's out. No, he's not coming back. We don't tolerate that kind of bullshit.
Oh, when you hit him after the bell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, he's done. Yeah,
he's done. He said, look, I'm one of the most lenient commissioners. I am the most lenient commissioner in the professional sports arena. But that shit doesn't fly. And I was like, yeah, no doubt, dude. Like, I love Dana White. He's a hardo. And when he talks about Strickland, he's like, look, the guy fights his own battles. He picks his own fights. He's got a loud ass mouth, but I'm not going to tell him what to say. You guys want to ask him stupid questions about gender and stuff like that. Well, you're going to get that response. You should have saw it coming, dumbass.
Yeah,
so,
he lets his fighters. That's why they respect him too. And when he was trying to get Conor McGregor to fight, he's like, look, Conor McGregor, awesome businessman. He's made all this money. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight. What am I going to do? He's like, that's his choice. He's a grown man. Conor McGregor can do what he wants. And that's what I like about Dana White, that he lets his fighters, do what the fuck they want to do.
Yeah. And we talked about betting too. Apparently the betting favorites for the UFC 300 card was 10-3. So most bettors, I would imagine, had a pretty good time betting for these fights. I could be wrong. But hey, that's pretty good betting favorites right there. You talked about McGregor versus Michael Chandler. It was at June 29th, I think UFC 303. Who would you take in that fight?
I'm gonna go with Michael Chandler.
I love Michael Chandler.
I think 3 years of Conor McGregor. You've seen his last like 3 fights. He's coming from a leg snap.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, he's done. But it's gonna be fun to watch. I'll be watching.
Yeah, I want to tune into that fight. I think Michael Chandler's got him easily. I really do. The last fight I saw McGregor won was against Cowboys Cerrone on his last leg, and he basically shouldered him to death. Like he had him in a high lock, whatever, and just with his shoulders. And I was like, what kind of fight is this? It was just like a warm up fight, but yeah, after that leg snap versus Poirier, back today.
Yeah, he's probably done fighting good, but it's still gonna be exciting. The build-up's gonna be good. It's gonna be good marketing, and everybody is gonna tune into that fight strictly to see what Conor McGregor can do. Because Dana White said if there's anybody who could probably come back from a leg snap, it's probably that guy. So only time will tell at this point.
All right, and the last question I'll ask in this UFC segment is, who are your top 3 UFC fighters?
Top UFC 3
Just
fighters.
personal preference, your favorites.
I'm going to go with John Jones. I'm going to go with...
Some diversity, cool.
I'm going to go with Ngannou.
More diversity, nice.
And then I'm going to go with personal favorite... Damn, that's tough.
If you are what you say you are.
Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget him, bro. You like him a lot.
Yeah, that's a fucking dog right.
Yeah, my top 3, I like Dustin Poirier is 1. I don't know what it is about him. I love Dustin Poirier. Sugar Sean's in there for sure. He's probably at 3. Number 2, it used to be Paige Van Zandt for personal reasons, but now she's out of the UFC.
Man, Ngannou, bro, that dude is a powerhouse. That dude, he hits like nobody else.
Yeah, and my number 3 would be George St. Pierre. Like, I know he's not fighting anymore. GSP was so sick, man. So sick. And
like salt pepper, baby.
Yeah, I'll throw an honorable mention out there just because he had iron hands, was Robbie Lawler. One of the bloodiest fights in UFC history. So fun to play with on the video game. Like, dude, it was that dude stood on business. And then, of course, I would say the best matchup in UFC that I've seen, like in terms of box office, and just you got Ultimate Trash Talker versus Gangster, was Nate Diaz versus McGregor.
Yeah, he's from Compton, bro. He's a real deal.
He about that smoke.
Yeah. He's your typical. I'm not going to back down from anything. He's the one guy who can get the shit beat out of him, and he will keep fighting.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't even. He's always like, his eyes are swollen.
I can do an interpretation of him.
Yeah. He's always just like.
Look, man, and I'll just knock him the fuck out. I don't care. I'm just Conor McGregor, man.
You're a podcaster, bro.
You're a podcaster, bro. It's not even that cool. Like, no disrespect, but Bradley Martin, I'm fucking your shit up, homie.
You're a podcaster, bro.
You're a podcaster. But yeah, a great event, worth the money. And then Alex Pereira with his knockout after the nut tap was pretty sick as well. But yeah, Holloway and Gaethje took the cake for sure. And then just little highlights from the Masters. We didn't want, like, if you watch the Masters from start to finish every hole, where are you? I want to shake your hand, because that's a lot of freaking golf to watch, and you have a lot of free time on your hands. But great tournament. For a while, we thought there was like a 4-way tie, I think, with Max Homa, Scheffler, Morikawa, and someone else. Ludwig from Texas Tech in Sweden. Young kid, my age, 24 years old out there, got second place in the Masters tournament. I hope they get compensated for that. I'm sure they do. Not to support second place, but we'll give them a hand.
Yeah, they're getting a round of applause.
Yeah, but nonetheless, Scotty Scheffler won his second green jacket by 4 strokes, shooting 11 under. He kind of ran away with it at the end. And one of the things I saw from his post-match interview, I should say, was he expressed his faith in Jesus, which I thought was really neat. He said, how would you define yourself? And he's like, well, I would define myself as a follower of Jesus. And all that kind of stuff. I was like, damn, I like me some Scotty Scheffler. I like me some Christians.
Good man.
Good man. He's a good man. So, yeah, no, great great series. And Max Homa, that's one of your favorite guys. He did a great job in the tournament. I was hoping DeChambeau would have stuck with it, but he fell off. Do you think this is that was the last ride for Tiger Woods?
He got one more.
He's got one more. He was banged up, dude. He was, icy hot. Patches on his back.
He tried a new approach. Apparently, he wasn't going to have sex, before this, and the new approach it didn't work. I don't know. I'm not condoning that kind of behavior, but whatever you got to do to win, you got to do. So apparently, what he tried did not work.
Yeah. Whatever happened to that Aggie that took the show last year? I wonder what happened to him.
Forgot what was his name.
I don't remember his name. That sucks. I should remember his name.
Aggies are number one in baseball now.
Yes. The Texas A&M Aggies are number one baseball team. Dude, they're good. They swept Vanderbilt. It was like 12-0 and then 9-0 and then I can't remember the third score, but they are on a roll. There's 5 SEC teams in the top 10 in NCAA baseball right now. Arkansas is up there too. Tennessee's up there. I know Georgia. I'm sorry, not Georgia. What's it called? Florida's in the top 25. They're towards the bottom. LSU and South Carolina used to be in it, but they just got kind of kicked out. But there's another team in there. Vanderbilt's in the top 10. How about that?
Good job, Aggies.
One thing I will throw out there as a complaint to NCAA baseball is it is so hard to find. Watching on television, they're not going to have a lot of games. They're going to have some good ones on there, but if you want to keep up with it on the ESPN app, you can't look at it like you're looking at MLB. You can't go in there and say, all right, what are the stats? What are the names? And it's I don't know. I find it very difficult to navigate, which I hate because it's such a fun sport. I'd like to keep up with it more, but there's no way to do it. I have to go to Safari and look up, SEC. I don't know. It's just
see how bad you want to figure out what's going on.
See how bad.
You'll find a way.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. Yeah. Okay. So, and then a couple of highlights as well. We'll just throw out some highlights. It's the Masters debut. Ludwig Aberg finished second at 7 under. And then you had Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, and Tommy Fleetwood finished in a tie for third at 4 under. And then Scheffler was the betting favorite at plus 400, ended up winning. And then with the win, Scheffler earned 100 world ranking points, 600 FedEx Cup points, and his second green jacket, and $3.6 million. Wow. So congratulations to Scotty Scheffler. That is the Master Tournament. Okay, now we'll move into Texas news. So this covers the Silver Boot Series, Houston Astros versus the Texas Rangers, which concluded on Sunday, I believe. The Astros and Rangers first played each other the other week. I was at the game for their conclusion of the series, which the Rangers got smoked, but we tied that series 2-2, and then the Astros come back in Minute Maid Park and win the series 2-1. The Astros catching some steam here. It seems like some things are coming into motion, and they got some young pitchers in there. The bats are starting to come around.
Bats are starting to hit. Like I said, Christian Javier, he struggled last year, and with all the guys being injured on the pitching roster, he's already 3-0. He's pitching already lights out compared to last year. He controls more of the zone. I think he pitched 7 innings yesterday. As long as he can keep it up, when everyone else gets back, and he's like the third or fourth pitcher, they kind of move some guys around that are pitching right now. Maybe move probably Hunter Brown or JP France, kind of push them down the lineup. They can continue to improve. They are injured, but don't get your hopes up yet.
Yeah, I would agree. That's what I was going to say is once y'all's starting rotation kind of gets back in a rhythm, I'd probably see some massive improvement from the Astros. There's no need to panic. I've been telling this to Astros fans, at work and, some friends close by. And it's just look, there's 162 games in a year. It took, a couple teams last year, I think the Phillies, 40 games to start getting in the rhythm, around the All-Star break. We're not even 20 games into the season, and there's a lot of people just out there, saying, oh, throw it away. It's terrible. I hate these guys. You know, I don't want to buy any more jerseys. I don't want to go to the games. Nothing. You know, the tickets are expensive. Well, they weren't expensive before. You went to a lot of games. You sold them out. Like, don't freak out. There's 162 games. You got a great roster. The question for the Astros is the future. Y'all's farm system was the heart and soul of the Astros team. You know, guys like, Dubon, guys like Kyle Tucker, some pitchers. Well, where's the capital now? Like, that's something I think the Astros will have to figure out is how do they manage the future? I thought they were going to trade Altuve to kind of get maybe some cash considerations and some, AAA ball players, but they ended up signing into like a multi-year extension, which at his age was weird for me.
He played good on Sunday, but at the end of the day, I think they should have traded him as well.
Yeah,
I've been saying that for since last year.
Yeah,
I said that like way early on too. It was like Dubon, he's good, he's solid. No, Altuve, and I get it. It's one of those things. Altuve's been there for the highs and lows, but it's like looking ahead. Same thing with Springer. I was like, man, we should trade Springer. He's gonna leave anyway. He left anyway. Same with Correa. It's like they're gonna leave. You just have to. You want to make the move before. You want to get ahead before. Yeah, you might be a little, bad, for a year or something, but you have to get ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you think that? Well, I was gonna ask something about the Astros, but my mind's blanking on me. But here, outside this, we'll kind of flip to the Rangers. Over under 90 wins for the Rangers. What do you think?
Over.
I'm thinking over as well. I think they had a pretty good start. They're still missing some starting pitchers. We got DeGrom and Scherzer, not in the rotation. Evaldi's kind of been carrying the boats for us. I know Dan Dunning and John Gray are pretty decent pitchers, but we got some better guys out there. It would have been so freaking nice to keep Jordan Montgomery. That dude pitched lights freaking out in the postseason.
Well, y'all got Lorenzen now.
Yeah, Michael Lorenzen. Yeah, he's hurt.
He's pitching
15,
right now.
Yeah, he was on like the DL for a little bit, but I think he's back.
Yes, well, he's struggling right now. I just checked the stats he's pitching the fourth inning right now, and he has 4 walks, 2 strikes. He's only got 1 hit, but he's not controlling the strike zone.
Yeah.
And then looks like Reese Olson has 7 strikeouts in the 3rd inning.
Yeah. Who are we playing?
Tigers.
Detroit. Yeah, and as far as the Astros offense goes, we're still waiting on that. Dang. We're still waiting on that Wyatt Langford home run, or I'm still waiting on it. Like I was very excited that they called him up to the starting rotation on offense, and I tell you what really hurt was the Josh Young injury. Like some people had him as an MVP candidate this year, where I was like, "Oh, heads up now." Which, by the way, Josh Young, you got some mutual friends that know him. Hopefully, we can get him on the podcast eventually within this year.
How long is he out for?
It was a fractured wrist. Wish we had the medical guy for this. And we'll throw him in. Yeah, let's call him in. I think it's like 6 weeks. If I remember correctly, it was 6 weeks, and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. 2 or 3 weeks. So he'll probably be back June, July.
Okay, yeah, he's got some time.
Yeah, great third baseman. I think he has potential to win a Gold Glove over there. Just great. And then of course you got Seager and Semien. Evan Carter kind of getting back into his rhythm this first full season. He was on a hot streak last year. He's probably got some adjustments to make this year. But yeah, no, I got over on 90 wins for the Rangers. I think they're going to be around 94, 95 wins. And
I'll go 97.
I think they take the division this year. I think it'll be close. But I think the Astros, I would go around 88, 90 wins for them.
I'm going to go 76. Yeah, I'm going to go 76 and 90.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I guess the phrase there for you would be expect the worst and you'll never be disappointed.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, you do that with the Cowboys too, which...
I mean, think about this too. I've always been an Astros fan. I work in Houston now. When the Astros are in the playoffs, the dealership is not as busy.
So you don't want to make him for those reasons?
Sorry.
Somebody's got to make a living here in this economy, and it's most certainly going to be Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Astros. Man, oh man. See, the Texans is fine because they play on Sundays. They might have a playoff game on Saturday. The Astros, though, when they're good, man, that dealership is a ghost town.
Yeah. And speaking of expecting the worst, and you'll never be disappointed, the Dallas Cowboys, which we got news recently this week about Ceedee Lamb holding out from voluntary workouts in anticipation of his new contract. So, according to Adam Schefter, it says Ceedee Lamb isn't expected to attend the start of Dallas's voluntary offseason program Monday while he awaits a new contract to replace the one scheduled to pay him a fully guaranteed $17 million for his upcoming fifth-year option season. So we already had a receiver today get paid, Devontae Smith, possibly, arguably, the best number 2 wide receiver in the league. 3-year, $75 million contract extension that includes $51 million guaranteed, according to Ian Rapport. That's a big contract signing. I like the contract. I think he's worth the money in terms of what they got going on there in their schemes. But with the Ceedee Lamb situation, I know Justin Jefferson's also holding out as well. You can bet the farm Dallas is the last person to pay their stud. That's my opinion. They're going to wait until Jetta gets paid, until other guys get paid, and they're going to go, oh, I guess it is time to pay Ceedee Lamb. Let's pay him the whole freaking salary cap. Well deserved, but pay the guy. You know where the Cowboys made their mistake? They should have paid him a year ago. In 2022, they should have paid him then. They should have said, "Yep, you know what? He was really the only stud on the wide receiver on our wide receiver roster that year." And Dak, yeah, he did struggle, but when he threw it to Ceedee Lamb, the production increased dramatically. And we have an anticipation that he's going to ball out this year. Well, what they got instead was the guy that led the league in receptions, the number 1 fantasy football wide receiver in the NFL. And now you got to pay him like the number 1 wide receiver, right, or number 2 wide receiver right behind Tyreek Hill. That's what you got to do. You got to pay that guy. Same thing for Dak. He just had an MVP caliber season. Some would argue he was deserving of winning the regular season MVP award. And that's why they're not paying him now, because they're like, that 22 season held him back. He struggled. And the postseason was like, it was a disappointment, obviously. Well, this year again, postseason, disappointment. Regular season, fantastic, great, the best you've ever seen Dak Prescott play. So you got your best 2 studs that had their best seasons ever in their career, and you got to pay them with a low salary cap.
Pay CD and move on.
Yes, but I'm just saying, it frustrates me. There's so much. We don't want to go too far into the Dallas Cowboys, but it's so frustrating to me that we're like the only team in the NFL that does this crap. And is Ceedee Lamb worth the money? Absolutely. But what would be your contract projections for Ceedee Lamb?
He'll probably get paid probably 31 a year.
31? Yeah.
I think, was he 17?
How many years?
4.
4 years.
He's probably going to try to get one more contract at the age of 30.
Oh, I forgot. Calvin Ridley got paid, was it 4 years, $96 million? That's around the same, right?
4 years, $92 million. That's
what is that? Over 20s, 25, right under 25 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, right under 25 a year. A little overpaid for Calvin Ridley.
Devontae Smith's getting about 23 a year, 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pay him about 30.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill gets paid about 30. I pay him 30.
Ceedee Lamb has, if not, he has basically the same production on his best years as Tyreek Hill. I mean, I would say Tyreek Hill's slightly more valuable, but his age is getting up there. Ceedee Lamb's in his prime.
Yeah, I'd pay him 30 and move on, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they'll do, but I don't blame Ceedee Lamb for holding out. It's not like the Zeke thing where it's like, hey, you got to pay me before you pay anybody else. It's like, all right, well, we've learned that paying running backs is the best fortuitous position an organization can be in. But it was at that time, I guess it was time to pay a running back in Jerry's eyes. But yeah, I think Ceedee Lamb deserves the contract, but freaking pay him. My God. It's ridiculous. And pay Jetta too, but just after Ceedee Lamb.
About who gets there first.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be us. Oh my God. Okay, moving on. Final segment, the unscripted segment. And this is Hunter Poole's question of the day and our discussion of a little bit of GOAT talk. We did a little MJ LeBron 2 weeks ago, but this week we have a more tricky question about the greatest of all time. And what is it?
Greatest of all time is, the GOAT. What is they've got a different bunch of sports where it's like, this guy's the GOAT, this guy's the GOAT. And my question to you is, what is the hardest sport to be considered the GOAT in any sport? It could be trash can ball, it can be football, it can be this. What is the hardest sport to be the GOAT in?
When we recorded our podcast on the technical issues, I had one answer, but I had some time to think about it, and I want to change my answer. I think it's baseball. I think baseball is the hardest sport to be the GOAT in because you look at, pick your poison. Like, do you want to pick the best pitcher, like a Nolan Ryan, or, it depends on the longevity of their career too. Is it who has the most strikeouts as a pitcher? Is it who has the lowest ERA as a pitcher, the most Cy Youngs as a pitcher? Or is it an offensive guy? Is it your Barry Bonds? Is it, your Mike Trout? Is it your Albert Pujols that had over 750 home runs? Is it one of those guys? And you look at Albert Pujols, as the longer you play, the lower your stats get averaged because you're not the same player. So like your average, he's batting like 240 a year, less home runs. And it's just kind of plummeting your stats a little bit. That's why you can't look at the stats when you're judging these players. You kind of have to be there to witness them. But I look at baseball as like there's too many variables to judge a GOAT by. And how difficult is it for a guy like Shohei Ohtani, who, when he's done with his career, will probably be looked at, in my opinion, as the best baseball player who ever lived because he could pitch effectively and hit highly effectively. Like, you got a guy that's hitting 30-plus home runs a year, maybe over 100 RBIs as DH, batting almost every single day, almost very little days off, and then goes out and pitches and gets over 200 Ks a year, sub-4 ERA, higher win percentage over loss percentage. That's a freaking stud. Like, we've never seen that in the history of the game ever. And it used to be a guy like, Mike Trout's the best in the league. Well, he played for a shit team. It's like he could hit 40 home runs and have 40 RBIs. But was he the best? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't say he's the GOAT of baseball. But I think Shohei, when it's done, how impossible that seems to be for players in today's market, even as the game has evolved, I think baseball is the hardest sport to become the GOAT in.
Good answer. And then kind of goes to, so do you have a different criteria for baseball's GOAT, or do you have, for when you consider a GOAT in each sport, is it going to be the same or different kind of criteria?
I think it's different for every sport. And that's what's hard because everyone has their own criteria. Like, you look at football and you go, and I'll let you answer a little bit too here in a second, but it's like, you look at football and you're like, oh, he's the most successful quarterback. Who has the most rings? You look at NBA, who has the most success rate in the finals? And we argue MJ and LeBron and, some other things with that. Who has more rings than MJ? Do you have to win every single final that you're in? Or is it how many times you've been to the final? Is it what was your roster like when you were in the finals? Did you carry the boats? Or did you, in football, how many weapons did you have? Like, Tom Brady has always had like a top 10 defense when he got when he got into the Super Bowl. How many big studs though did he have at wide receiver? And if he had too many, do we take that away from him or do we accolade him for it? And then it's like, so like that fine line in between there is like my criteria. Is I look at Brady and I said, okay, a strong defense wins Super Bowls. Cool, got it. Well, let's look at the eye test of Tom Brady himself. Who's a better quarterback than Tom Brady during his lifetime? Was it Brett Favre? Was it Aaron Rodgers? Packers, I get it. Was it Peyton Manning? Was it Drew Brees? Drew Brees has better stats. He's with a stat guy, basically. Peyton Manning basically was the Josh Allen before Josh Allen, where I have to go through this gauntlet of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick gets to make it to the Super Bowl every year. And he did it twice. That's a great quarterback. Like Peyton Manning is close to being the GOAT as well. But what's your criteria? What is your criteria?
My criteria is going to be, for someone, let's just say championships is your biggest criteria. And it's right. There's different things that go into it. Someone can be like, okay, this guy has 4 Super Bowls. Okay, let's look at his 4 Super Bowls. What teams did he have?
Right.
Someone like Mahomes is already on this trajectory to be probably the GOAT. And he might not finish with 7. But if he finishes with 5 or 6, how do you not put him as a GOAT?
Yeah.
Because you look at what he can do. Mahomes is one of those people, when you watch him, it matches everything else. So when I say it's like, how the hell are they always going to Super Bowl? Like, have you seen Mahomes play in the playoffs? Yeah. He's a reason why, because even though like, oh, the refs will throw this, it's like, no, just go watch like the full game and tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things, and same thing where it's like, if you have a certain criteria for your GOAT, the thing that makes this such a great discussion, and it's always going to be a discussion for every sport, is because your criteria is going to be correct for your GOAT. So technically, when you talk about your GOAT, realistically, you are right because it's your criteria.
Yeah.
However, though, there's no certain criteria that actually goes into the greatest of all time for any debate. So for you, your biggest aspect you're going to be right in your criteria. Your biggest thing is you got to inflict that kind of knowledge to make someone agree with you.
Free will sports takes.
However, though, what makes it tough is that when you're inflicting this knowledge on somebody, they already have their own criteria. So how are you going to get someone that doesn't have the same criteria of you to believe everything that you're saying? Because there's not no right or wrong answer. If I say LeBron's the GOAT and you say Jordan's the GOAT, even though we can argue back and forth and everything, at the end of the day, we're technically both right.
Yeah.
In our eyes, because there's no certain criteria.
Defending a GOAT is like running for president.
And exactly. Another thing is that when people talk about the GOAT discussion or who their GOAT is or favorite players, it seems like maybe they're talking from a more, from their heart, not their mind. Not really using the eye test. It's like, What is their heart? It's like when people say, Kobe's the GOAT. And truthfully, the reason why I see it is when I see people say that is that Kobe, even though he had Shaq, the most dominating player ever, you look at him, he's like, we had 5 rings. He won 2 without Shaq, and that's fair. He actually did win 2 without Shaq. But the 3 where he was not the main guy on the team, and then his things like Kobe's this, he averaged this many points, took this many shots. He did this. What happened with Kobe is once and I don't like to speak ill, I'm not speaking ill on the dead, but once he passed away, that's where him started going up in the GOAT conversations, because that's when I started to realize I think people really do talk with their heart more than anything. After sawing what Kobe did in the ranks, even like NBA players, analysts, like they're like, Kobe's the GOAT, but it wasn't like that before.
Right.
It really got kind
amplified.
of brought to light once he did that. So I like the question because it kind of, basically the question is, it kind of lets people know that are listening, what is their criteria? Because like I said, the point is you got your own criteria and then you have to make light of it. Once you make light of it, then people can understand, okay, that's kind of how this dude thinks about this kind of sports. So now when I hear his GOAT kind of criteria, then it kind of makes sense when I hear his top 10 rankings for quarterbacks, top 10 for running backs. Now I understand this is what this guy views as sport. Yeah. And that's why you got to come to light and make people, either agree with you or at least listen. Not everybody's going to agree with something like that because there's no actual factual answers to have to a GOAT conversation.
Yeah. And I'll flip that as well back to, because I don't think you got a chance to answer. What do you think is the toughest sport to be the GOAT?
Toughest sport to be the GOAT in? I'm going to have to go with NBA.
Okay.
NBA is the most like one person can take over the game.
Yeah.
there's only 15 players on the bench. There's only about 10 to 12 who play. Then you got 5 positions on the court. Also, when you think about the draft, there's only 60 people who get drafted a year.
Yeah.
So, and this is a worldwide sport too. This isn't just in America, and it's not just, Argentina. This is a worldwide sport. So then when you have the NBA, that is the biggest basketball league in the world. So when you look at it, for someone like to win championships, and sometimes, there's not that many teams that will actually have like 5 to 10 like solid, like really good players. We saw it with the Nuggets. They go 10 deep. They're good. Then you look at LeBron's teams when he was playing, man, he had like 1 or 2 good guys. And a lot of those guys were, if LeBron was on the court, you kind of see how average those guys were. The plus minus kind of breaks it like that. So with the NBA, for someone to dominate, it's the one, like they dominate everything. To bring a team of 15 guys and to win, that's a worldwide sport. And you have to, it's not like most people can't play in the NBA if they're not, over 6'4", can't shoot the ball, you can't handle the ball.
You're an outlier if you don't meet those criteria.
It's a very tough sport. And you're going against these dudes who are, bigger than most humans on the planet, playing one sport, trying to get the ball into the basket. I think that basketball is probably the hardest sport to be the GOAT in.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer too, because you made the point off record too, like MJ has the highest success rate of winning rings. Like he has 6 rings and won all 6. And then you got, if that's the criteria for him being the GOAT, then you have to look. Do you look at Bill Russell, who has 11? And then you kind of go back to LeBron, which is the other side of that argument, where it's like, well, he hasn't won all of these finals, but he's been to a lot of them. But his rosters weren't as incredible or as intact or as a consistent team as an MJ was or a Kobe was. And so you look at it as like did LeBron have to do more than what Michael Jordan and Kobe had to do in his time? And does that constitute you as a GOAT? Or did you have a team and you stuck with one with that same team and you were the highest, most successful, and most feared player on the planet? Does that constitute you as a GOAT? Or is it just, he won the most rings back in the day, he has 11. Nobody has 11. And that's a fun argument that you can kind of parallel comparison with NFL. Like you said in your hypothetical, if Mahomes wins 4 rings, is he the GOAT? Like, because of his talent. You look at the eye test in complement of that. You're like, well, his talent is obviously far beyond what Brady's was, and he's kept the same kind of team together this whole time, and he's fought against Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, this gauntlet of AFC quarterbacks. I'm not throwing Tua's name in there because he's bum, but it's just like that's what's so fun about the conversation is there's so many variables, and you decide what your criteria is. It's why we call it a free will take.
Yeah, and it's
can you win the presidency with your take?
And kind of like when I talk about NBA, like I said, it's kind of hard because there's no actual factual proof that this is the best team ever. But to kind of paint a picture, kind of tell a story, think about it like this: the Warriors went 73-9, and they lost to the Cavs in 2016. They blew the 3-1 lead. Okay, so they had their starting lineup was Steph Curry, they had Klay Thompson, they had Harrison Barnes, they had Draymond Green, and they had Bogut. So what did they do? They're like, man, we just went 73-9. We had the best regular season ever for any team. And we still lost. What do we do? So what they did was they took out Harrison Barnes, who is a solid role player, especially on a championship team like that. And they threw in Kevin Durant, who was arguably a top 3 player at that time.
Slight upgrade.
Some people thought he was maybe the best player, maybe number 2. Took that, and then they made this Warriors team. The Warriors team, they would have won 3 in a row, but the last season when Kawhi went to the Raptors, they lost some games. So put in perspective, that would be like, let's think about the NFL. Let me put this in NFL terms. That's like taking. You see Mahomes just won all these Super Bowls, right? He had to go his third. He has Rashid Rice, who's he's having a little issues off the field. So what they do is they take out Rashid Rice and they throw in prime Randy Moss into that team, and it's like, have fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of the perspective of what kind of goes on with, it's looking at the team things and like that. And in baseball, you could be like, think about the Rangers. Rangers win the championship, and what they do is they take Ohtani and they throw him into the lineup without having to give up anything, and it's like, there you go, you guys got Ohtani now.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's kind of perspective of how it goes.
The holy trinity of comparisons of get absolutely fucked.
Yeah. So how are you going to stop teams like that? And that's what that's why for me, looking at what for basketball, like seeing LeBron, like LeBron's my go. I've seen the teams he's had, and I've seen what he's had to do with those teams, plus the competition of not many people can say they went against that 2017 Warriors team in the finals twice when you're, one time you don't even have your second best player at one point is, Jeff Green.
Right.
Matthew Dellavedova. Like, okay.
Yeah. And then you can go in, a fun counter argument or counter criteria you could throw out there in terms of NBA is like, and I'll compare it to different sports as well, is you've got a team that wins multiple championships with kind of the same amount of players, but none of them are considered GOATs. They're all just they just play super well together. Like the Spurs, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Patty Mills, Tiago Schroeder, and those guys like that. Well, none of those guys will ever be considered the GOAT. It'll be Greg Popovich because he had his team and he had his philosophy, and it won them championships. And he beat teams like LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh's big three team. And then so it's stuff like that. So you can compare that to the NFL. That's like putting Andy Reid with his starting quarterback Baker Mayfield and winning 3 or 4 championships with him. Is Baker Mayfield the GOAT? No, not even close. But you would accolade that to the head coach. And then you move over to baseball, and it's like, oh, here's a great man. Let's put Dusty Baker. No, let's put Bruce Bochy. That's he won some World Series with the Giants, and he won some with the Texas Rangers. Now remove all the GOATs. Remove Tim Lincecum. Remove Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien,
Buster Posey.
Yeah, Buster Posey. Remove all those guys, but he won championships. That's the same thing. But it doesn't go to the players; it goes to the coaches. What's your criteria? It's a fun question to play with, and it's fun because it's totally unscripted. We didn't do any preparation for the questions. It's all orchestrate your own criteria for it.
Exactly.
So yeah, hardest sport. You say NBA, I say MLB. That's our own criteria.
Comment, and we'll have a discussion.
Comment your reactions. All right, yeah. So that covers basically everything. There's a lot of topics in just right at about an hour of time. And one of the fun things we want to introduce to you guys is on X. So X is implementing a lot of really fun stuff. And so we have now been able to delegate our accounts to all of our admin and contributors. Obviously, me and you are the admins, and we have the analyst and medical guy as contributors who will all be contributing to that one account as our infinity gauntlet of social media. And if you guys, I would highly encourage, I know a lot of people are scared of Twitter because of what it was like back in the day. Well, since Elon Musk has taken over, it is a super fun app to be on, a lot of fun things, a lot of new features. So what we did is we decided to create a community where I called the Unscripted community, to where you can join it and free think through it and throw your boldest takes in there, throw your hardest arguments in there, throw your criteria in there, and we get to all interact as a community on X. And that's where your audience questions can arrive. That's where your different topic suggestions can arrive, all that sort of stuff. Your opinions on our latest episodes. You can post clips from our episodes on there and throw out your opinions in the quote comments. There's a lot of things you can do with that. So we encourage you guys to go on X at STS _pod with a 0, and join the community. Join the unscripted community. The bolder the take, the better.
Amen.
Yeah. So find us on X. You can also find us on Instagram at sts.pod, as well as TikTok with the same username, sts.pod. It's on the ticker below if you're watching. And we will be back every Sunday shattering the script. I'm your host, Jared May. I'm joined by my other host, Hunter Poole, and we will be back in 1 week. See you guys on the YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good rest of this week.